The clash of three eras, a situation unique in history. Rushdie belongs by origin to a Muslim society that in large part is still living in the period before the modern era. He wrote his book in Europe in the modern era, or more precisely, at the end of that era. Just as Iranian Islam was at the time moving away from religious moderation toward a combative theocracy, so with Rushdie, the history of the novel was moving from the genteel, professorial smile of Thomas Mann to unbridled imagination drawn from the rediscovered wellspring of Rabelaisian humor. The antitheses collided, each in its extreme form. From this viewpoint, the condemnation of Rushdie can be seen not as a chance event, an aberration, but as the most profound conflict between two eras. Theocracy goes to war against the modern era and targets its most representative creation, the novel. For Rushdie did not blaspheme. He did not attack Islam. He wrote a novel. But that, for the theocratic mind, is worse than an attack. If a religion is attacked by a polemic, a blasphemy, a heresy, the guardians of the temple can easily defend it on their own ground with their own language. But the novel is a different planet for them, a different universe based on a different ontology, an infernum where the unique truth is powerless and where satanic ambiguity turns every certainty into enigma. Let us emphasize this, not attack, but ambiguity. The second part of the satanic verses, the incriminated part, which evokes Muhammad and the origin of Islam, is presented in the novel as a dream of Gibril Farishtas, who then develops the dream into a cheap movie in which he himself will play the role of the archangel. The story is thus doubly relativized, first as a dream, then as a bad film that will flop, and presented not as a declaration, but as a playful invention. A disagreeable invention? I say no. It showed me, for the first time in my life, the poetry of the Islamic religion, of the Islamic world. We should stress this. There is no place for hatred in the relativistic universe of the novel. The author who writes a novel in order to settle scores, personal or ideological, is headed for total and certain aesthetic ruin. Ayesha, the girl who leads the hallucinating villagers to their deaths, is of course a monster, but she's also seductive, wondrous, haloed by the butterflies that accompany her everywhere, and often touching, even in the portrait of an emigre imam, an imaginary portrait of Khomeini. There is an almost respectful understanding. Western modernity is viewed with skepticism, never presented as superior to Oriental archaism. The novel historically and psychologically explores sacred old texts, but it also shows how much they are degraded by TV, advertising, the entertainment industry, and the left-wing characters who deplore the frivolity of this modern world. Do they at least enjoy the author's full sympathy? No, indeed, they are miserably ridiculous and as frivolous as the frivolity around them. No one is right and no one entirely wrong in the immense carnival of relativity that is this work. Therefore, with the satanic verses, the art of the novel as such is incriminated. That is why in this whole sad story, the saddest thing is not Khomeini's verdict, which proceeds from a logic that is atrocious but consistent. Rather, it is Europe's incapacity to defend and explain patiently to itself and to others, that most European of the arts, the art of the novel, in other words, to explain and defend its own culture. The, quote, children of the novel, end of quote, have abandoned the art that shaped them. Europe, the, quote, society of the novel, end of quote, has abandoned its own self. It does not surprise me that the Sorbonne theologians, the 16th century ideological police who kindled so many stakes, should have made life so hard for Rabelais, forcing him often to flee and hide. What seems to me far more amazing and admirable is the protection provided him by the powerful men of his time, Cardinal du Bellay, for instance, and Cardinal Odet, and above all, Francois I, the King of France. Were they seeking to defend principles, freedom of expression, human rights? They had a better motive. They loved literature and the arts. I see no Cardinal du Bellay, no Francois I in today's Europe. But is Europe still Europe? Is it still, quote, the society of the novel, end of quote? In other words, is it still living in the modern era? Or is it already moving into another era as yet unnamed for which its arts are no longer of much importance? If that is so, why be surprised that Europe was not disturbed beyond measure when, for the first time in its history, the art of the novel, Europe's art par excellence, was condemned to death? And this new age, after the modern era, has not the novel for some time already been living on death row?